Okay, this is our fellowships panel. We do this panel once a year, but we also do it as part of my internship class. So some of you are here as part of the internship class. Some of you are here because you're interested in learning more about fellowships. So my apologies for the technical difficulties that we got started. I sent the speakers the wrong Zoom link, so that was my bad. A couple of them are here, and my guess is the others will be joining us momentarily. So what we're going to do is we'll start off and just talk a little bit about what fellowships are. Fellowships, and I'm going to give you a quick overview. And oh, excellent, Bob is here too. I'm going to give you a quick overview about fellowships. Bob, thank you. I'm so sorry about that. This kind of thing.
No worries.
Always happens. But anyway, we are glad you're here. We have three fabulous UAlbany Rockefeller alums. Go right ahead and have a seat, who are joining us tonight to tell us about their fellowships and their experiences. And then we also have another staff person from the campus who's going to join us to talk about some of our other some other programs and fellowship type opportunities through the State Department that she helps students with. And she's running a few minutes late because she had to teach another class, and she'll be joining us as soon as she gets done with her class. So like I said, we're excited that you're here. And fellowships really is one of those words you hear a lot, but what does it mean? What is a fellowship? So a fellowship can be similar to an internship. Usually there's some kind of a work component. Sometimes they happen while you're still in school as an undergrad, or often as a graduate student. Sometimes they happen after you finish your degree. There's usually a financial component, and there's usually some kind of professional development. So it's not necessarily like another internship where you're by yourself. There's usually a cohort of people who are doing the fellowship together. They might be interning or working in different offices, but there's some joint activities, some joint professional development activities that happen. So that's kind of a quick overview. And there's a lot of things that fall under that umbrella. So there's not a like black and white world of fellowships. So what I'd love to do to get us started is I'm going to go ahead and have our, I'm going to spotlight our speakers and have you guys do a quick introduction. Maybe just tell us your name, what year you graduated, what fellowship or fellowships. I know some of you may have done more than one fellowship, what fellowship or fellowships you did, and where you worked. So what fellowship program, and then where you worked. So just a quick kind of introduction, and then we'll dive into some more questions. So Shakira, you're up first on the screen, so why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Thanks so much, Joan, for having me. And hi, everyone. Good night. So my name is Shakira Thames. I graduated from Rockefeller College with my Bachelor's of Public Administration. Oh gosh, almost a year, last spring. So I'm a 2022 graduate. In the spring of 2022, I was a Center for Women in Government Public Policy Fellow. And that fellowship was with the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of District 2, which is located in Albany. And currently I am a 2024 Excelsior Service Fellow, and my current placement is with the New York State Department of Labor.
Stevie, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm Stevie Hunter. I also graduated in May 2022 with my master's in public administration, and I'm at the Office for the Prevention of Domestic Violence as an Excelsior Fellow.
Excellent. And Bob, go ahead.
So I'm the old timer, I guess. I graduated with my MPA from Rockefeller in 2017. I was part of the Excelsior Fellowship from 2017 through 2019. In that time, I was with the Governor's Appointments Office. So Shakira and Stevie, I'm sure you're aware of Kara Pangburn. I work with her. So that's where I was, and that's where I currently am. I am currently the appointments officer in charge of the Governor Hochul's appointments to boards and commissions at the executive level across the state. So
Excellent. Thank you. And Jacqueline has arrived. I told them you were coming from class. And we had technical difficulties, so we just got started. So Jacqueline is in a little bit of a different role at the university. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what programs you.
I love hearing them say that they're old timers or graduated so long ago. I am not going to tell you when I graduated from college or graduate school. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacqueline Letterman. I'm the Assistant Director for Global Academic Programs in the Center for International Education here at UAlbany. Just got in from teaching my globalization class. I teach in the Geography and Planning department as well. And my purpose tonight is to briefly talk to all of you about the U.S. Student Fulbright Program. And just kind of to introduce myself as someone that manages State Department and Defense Department grants for undergraduates, graduate students, PhD students to have overseas experiences that are funded, which is really nice. I know a lot of people like to hear about funded international exposure. So that's my purpose in just talking briefly about Fulbright. Thanks, Joan.
Excellent. So let's get started and we'll go around again, and maybe what I'll have each of you do is just tell us a little bit more about, you know, like how you got this fellowship, just a little kind of, you don't have to give us the whole application process, but just how you found out about it, and then a little bit more about what you're doing right now in your actual position, and what are some of the other kind of components of the fellowship that make it different than maybe a job or an internship. So Shakira, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure. I'll try to keep it as brief only because I've had experience with 2 fellowships during my master's program career. So if it's okay, I'll start with the Center for Women in Government. Because the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society is connected to Rockefeller College. They're very good at advertising the fellowship to students. I don't know if they advertise it to all students, maybe. CV, if you've received it, you can correct me too. But I found out about the fellowship just as an MPA student. And it's a fellowship when I was applying to UAlbany that I definitely had my sights on completing. And sorry if I forget some of your questions. I have a lot of thoughts. But that's how I pretty much found out about that fellowship. And the Excelsior Service Fellowship, another fellowship that is ran pretty closely through Rockefeller College. The previous career services director worked very closely with I believe the governor's office or the individuals that run the program through the governor's office to get students into the program. It is a nominated fellowship as far as the Excelsior Service Fellowship, so you have to be nominated by your college. I believe you also have to get your dean to approve and yes, sorry. Also, there is an Empire Fellowship. That's a fellowship I applied for, but due to my years of work experience, I did not qualify for. So there are 2 dualistic fellowships. The Excelsior Service Fellowship is pretty much for recent graduates. And the Empire State Fellowship is for mid-career, as far as I understand. And Bob, please correct me if I'm wrong. Mid-career. Okay, cool. Mid-career professionals. So anybody that has been out of school for a little bit or is transitioning to a different career, specifically in government and public service, that's another fellowship track as well.
Excellent. And there really are so many different opportunities. So I appreciate you sharing a number of those. I am going to, since you've highlighted some of those fellowships, I'm going to actually go to Jacqueline next, who's going to tell us a little bit about some of these State Department programs, which not exactly a fellowship, but very similar in some ways. And Jacqueline is going to have to leave in a few minutes. So she's going to kind of highlight those programs for us next. So go ahead, Jacqueline.
Thanks so much, Joan. I love talking to your class, and I noticed that you have some in person, some remote, so that's really awesome. So yeah, my perspective is a little bit different for this panel. because I'm talking about grants, but I do manage actually the Boren Scholarship and Boren Fellowship. Two of our Rockefeller students were abroad in fall on fellowships, one in Azerbaijan and one in Indonesia. So there's lots of variety in terms of the grants, scholarships, and fellowships that I do manage here at the university. So in my experience, just like maybe, I don't know if Joan wants me to mention like how I got into this role, but my background was in political science, international affairs, and then graduate work and thesis work on mostly focused on diplomacy, international law, and kind of actually NATO and post-Soviet states and their relationship with NATO. So my background, to age myself, worked at the UN in the Department of Political Affairs and the Department of Public Information and Arab Media. And then I moved around and fell into the teaching position here at the university, and then was hired subsequently in international ed. So from my perspective, as being someone that really likes to be out in the field and really likes to learn about others and communities, and it's very important. And teaching students, I teach a lot of freshmen and undergraduates about the process of globalization, and that not everybody is feeling the benefits of that process. There are millions of people that live below poverty standards in the world, and not just internationally, but here in our own community in the capital region, food insecurity, like all of those things. So global issues have always been very near and dear to my heart. So being able to advise students to apply for grants so that they can have international experiences is really, I think, amazing, because while there's a variety of them, there's different, requirements. Some you have to have your bachelor's degree in hand before it starts, and others like critical language, which is a language acquisition program, you can apply when you're a freshman all the way through PhD student. I can go on and on about all of the different grants, but if I have screen share ability, Joan, I don't know if I do.
Can make that for you right now.
Oh, amazing. I
There
can
you
just
go.
show the, thank you. I'll just show the website for Fulbright for those of you who may or may not be familiar with it. The cycle for academic year 24-25 opens the last day of March. So if you're a junior or a senior or an alum of UAlbany, you can apply for a Fulbright grant. They have varieties of grants available in developing countries, underdeveloped countries, developed countries, whatever you may be interested in. And you can apply for funding for a master's program. You can apply to be an ETA, which is an English teaching assistant in a classroom. Don't need to be in education to do that. You can apply for a study research grant. Maybe you have a proposal or you're working on some research that you want to take abroad. You certainly can apply for funding through Fulbright for that as well. And the application, as I mentioned, opens March 31st. My suggestion is to go to the website, kind of look over the different countries. There's an interactive map. You just click on a region. It'll take you there, and then all of the countries that are offering grants. They each have a country summary to see if there's potentially a language requirement, or maybe you can't be a dual citizen of said country or whatever. It really gives you a lot of great information. And Joan knows, Joan is one of the most supportive colleagues, faculty, friends I have on campus, and always is talking to students about CLS and Fulbright and Boren. We had a student that we shared that did an ETA in Taiwan for actually longer than her academic year program. We have an ETA in Romania right now who's a grad student. I have an ETA in Cambodia, someone just graduated, and someone leaving for Argentina as well for AY 23-24. So we have two semifinalists right now for Armenia and South Korea, which is also really exciting. So I think what I'd love to mention to everybody is you are the type of student to apply for a Fulbright grant. There's no GPA requirements. A lot of students will say, I have a dip in my transcript, or I had a really bad semester, et cetera. That's okay, because we can talk about that very briefly in your statement of purpose and then move on to more important things. You do submit your transcript, a couple of recommendations, some essays, short answer questions. It's a great application. It's comprehensive, but it's an online application. It's not like it's anything you haven't done previously. And I'm your advisor. So I'm the university's Fulbright program advisor, so I can be with you through the whole process. And if you have your bachelor's degree in hand by fall 24, this is the cycle you would apply. We work on it through the spring and summer. You apply, the deadline is usually mid-October. You find out in January if you're a semifinalist, and then you find out sometime like even March to May in spring 24 if you get the grant, and you would go abroad in fall 24 and spring 25. And as I mentioned before, yes, junior, senior, but I work with a lot of alum. And one of my ETAs as a semifinalist right now for Armenia graduated with her master's from UAlbany at least 4 years ago, maybe 5. And this is her second time applying. So hopefully keep our fingers crossed that comes through for her. So it's something to keep in your back pocket. It's something to consider, especially if you don't have any international experience. Fulbright really likes to diversify the cohorts that they send abroad. So while having experience is great, excuse me, if you don't have any experience, that is even better, because that's something that you can highlight in your application. Yeah, and it's, the website's great. It's a really great tool to kind of look through. There's a lot of information on it. It is a State Department program, so you have to be an American citizen, a US citizen to apply. And the other ones I manage to are state and defense. So it pains me to say that, like you have to be a US citizen to apply, because I do work with a lot of international students on campus. But if you're interested, I know Joan will send out my contact information. I'm doing lots of class visits. You might have seen me already this spring, but please do reach out to me, come in, make an appointment with me if you're interested in applying. I have lots of fellows that have done these amazing things through Rockefeller and other colleges come back to apply for Fulbright grants because they're pretty awesome. So I think, anyone that's interested should at least take a look and kind of go over the website and let me know if you'd like to chat more about it.
Excellent. Because Jacqueline needs to leave, does anyone
Zoom.
either on Zoom, does anyone on Zoom or in the room have any questions for her about any of the programs that you want to ask now that might be of interest to everybody?
Joe, do you have freshmen and sophomores too?
We did open this up to everyone, so I'm not sure if there's any freshmen or
okay.
sophomores. I don't think in the room. So there are people who are part of our class, and then there's other people who are just joining us.
Nice. Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure the demographics of everybody, but
No, that's fine.
Just to recap. So for Fulbright, if you're a junior or senior or grad student now, you can start the application process for that. It's CLS, which that application happens in the fall semester,
In the
right?
fall. Yep. And you could be a
And
freshman.
Anyone, right? Any
Freshman or
undergrad.
PhD. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And the other programs, some of them are available to graduate students, but like if you're an undergrad now, these are things
Exactly.
Yeah,
they're all very specific in terms of the requirements and whatnot. And I if you want to send or add to the chat somehow that flyer I sent you, Joan, I don't know, maybe Emily has it too. There's IIE, which is the Institute for International Education, facilitates the Fulbright, and they're doing like a general program session. It's called GPS, a group presentation session, and it's with all FPAs all over the country. And it's like a general meeting to actually talk to IIE personnel about grants and Fulbright and like very specific questions. And then they're doing breakout rooms for all the universities. So we have a specific breakout room. So that flyer, there's a link, and you click on the link to register, and then you'll get a code for the Zoom. And
Okay.
that's, I believe, on March 28th. And I can try to put it in the chat if I can find
Yeah,
it.
and we'll do a follow-up. If we've got it
Yeah.
already, we'll send a follow-up to everyone in the class as well as everybody who is just attending. We'll send a follow-up with
Yeah,
that
and
link.
if I can just mention really, really quick too, I'm sorry, Joan, the critical language scholarship that you mentioned, that's in the fall. You have to be matriculated in the fall semester. It's a summer program. Excuse me. So it commences in summer 24, and it's a language acquisition program. So you just have to be matriculated in the fall semester at UAlbany to apply. And it's an 8 to 10 week program based on whatever language you choose. There's lots of them that you don't need to have any background in, like Persian, Turkish, Swahili, Urdu, Indonesian. There's so many that you could choose from. And if you do have some language background, like classes, like in Chinese or Japanese or Korean or Portuguese, you could apply for that as well. There's also an online version of CLS called CLS Spark, so that if you're really kind of like married to like learning Russian or Chinese or Japanese, but you've never taken a class, you can apply for Spark, and it's an online program next summer where you still get a small stipend, you still have all of the language instruction, you get that non-competitive job availability thing that the State Department does. And there's a lot of different details about it, but CLS is not as big of an application as Fulbright. So, and I think everybody and anybody, if as long as you're matriculated, should apply for CLS, because it's really cool to go abroad and learn language skills in critical need areas that we seem to be losing language ability. So people that, you know, have that inclination or just want to try, I think that's really, you know, something you might want to consider as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll share, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Jacqueline. I know you need to run. We'll share your contact information with everybody as well, so that they think of other questions, they can just follow up with you. So excellent.
Thank you so much, Joan.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye. So let's, we'll kind of continue around. We took a little bit of a detour there, so my apologies. Stevie, why don't you share a little bit about your experience getting your fellowship and what you're doing right now in your actual position?
Yeah, definitely. So as Shakira said, for the Excelsior Fellowship, it was advertised to us really well in the MPA program. So I think we got a few emails about it over the course of the semester, which was great because it was really encouraging to apply. And I worked really closely with our career center person at the time, Yalitza. I'm pretty sure Shakira probably also worked closely with her. And she was just really great. So kind of take advantage of everything available to you resource-wise in the application process, because it really does help for your personal statement and resume. Because you don't know what to advertise about yourself until someone tells you, until you talk through your experience. So it's really helpful. But what I'm doing at the moment, so I'm in external affairs for OPTV. So we just got done planning an event, which was around our 30th anniversary. We had a short documentary about it. So I was kind of managing that whole event. And that was a lot of fun for me. But I also do things like travel with my boss, write up her talking points, her PowerPoints. So I'm a little all over the place, but I'm really enjoying it. And I'm getting great mentorship.
Excellent. Bob, tell us a little bit about your experience.
So mine is atypical. I actually didn't apply. What wound up happening my year was basically the appointments office had put in for a fellow, and at the 11th hour they realized, oh God, we never actually chose one, and the deadline had passed. So Kara at the time had reached out to the participating colleges saying, hey, we forgot one, who you got? So mine actually was more like an actual job interview. Yalitza, I worked with Yalitza. Yalitza forwarded me along. I was selected for an interview. I had a panel interview with like 13 other individuals. Left thinking I had not gotten it at all because they didn't really, you know, the questions were substantive, but for me, they were kind of superficial. But I've come to realize that that's actually a really good sign. But at the time, I didn't know that. So yeah, I actually was placed into that specific role, basically like a job. So as Stevie and Shakira can speak to, when you apply to the fellowship, there's no guarantee of where you're going. For me, it was only one place. I was either going to get it or I wasn't. So that's my difference there. And I'm still there. So I completed my fellowship in 2019, was hired out by my office as an assistant appointments officer, and now I am the appointments officer in charge of boards and commissions. So
Excellent. And that's a perfect segue, because I think that's something that is true about fellowships, is that often you're applying to a program, and then once you're in the program, then placements happen. And again, every fellowship's a little different about how that happens. So maybe Shakira or Stevie, could one of you talk about how, maybe Shakira share a little bit about the Women in Government program, and then Stevie can tell us a little bit about how the placement happened with Excelsior for her. So go ahead, Shakira.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for taking that off me. I was just like, how am I going to talk about 2 fellowships? But so the Center for Women in Government, they have course requirements. So you are required to take 3 courses while you are part of the fellowship program. And that also includes coming up with a project, right? The courses are semester long, and they teach you anything from nonprofit management to how government works, literally how government works, the budget process, how bills are passed, and the steps you would take to really analyze how bills are made in New York State. And there are professional development opportunities. We did a lot of networking. I will say, and I love networking. Stevie can tell you, whenever you have an opportunity to network, do it. I know it can be very overwhelming for people, and you only get better when you practice. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman. It doesn't matter if you're getting your PhD. Networking is a muscle you have to work, and the earlier you work it, the better you will get at it, and it really yields awesome benefits.
Can I just interrupt to say, I did not pay her to say that, but networking is the topic of our class after the panel tonight. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. You are full-time while you are working. It's about 35 hours to 40 hours in your placement. All of the classes are scheduled at night, and I think in Fridays, like, you work 4 days throughout the 3 months, the semester, and you have required professional development days that took place every Friday. So there was a balance. We learned how to write resumes. We learned how to persuasively write. So there was a really awesome professional development component that was taught by the alums. And again, networking was really our best friend. And we also learned how to fundraise for ourselves. We did plan a trip for ourselves. So we had a lot of fundraising and crowdfunding experience that was garnered from that as well. So.
Excellent. Stevie, tell us about the Excelsior Fellowship, how that works.
Yeah, definitely. So the first round of interviews, it was with selected professors from Rockefeller. So I think maybe there were 4 different people on the line, or maybe 5. So that was a little intimidating because it was over Zoom. I'm sure now you're used to Zoom interviews, but it was still kind of new to me. So it felt a little weird, but it was good. That went well. And I prepared a lot for it. I did a mock interview, everything like that. And so then you get past that first round, and you have to accept whether or not you want the fellowship. So you get nominated by your college, which is Rockefeller. And then so you have a deadline to accept that, but you don't know any of the placements yet either. So I think it was about 2 weeks before, and then you go to an interview with the state. And so in that case, it was Kara and then also Brittany, and they were great. My cat is like trying to get up on my desk right now. But I'm keeping him at bay. But so we got a list of the placements, about 2 weeks before. So I went through and I picked my top 5, and it was really funny because in my application process and in my first round of interviews, I really talked about workforce development and the Department of Labor. I really wanted that. And then I saw the Office for the Prevention of Domestic Violence, and my undergraduate degree is in gender, sexuality, and women's studies. So I was really excited that I would be able to utilize my undergrad degree. And those were the placements that I talked most about, were for the agency I'm currently at. And then I had 3 others that I was really passionate about. So that interview, you really need to prepare for it in terms of what they want to hear. Definitely look at state of the state, bring in any bills you've recently seen, talk about that. And then let me see. So after that, they passed me on to OPDV for an interview, and that went really well. And I'm here. So that's kind of how that placement happened.
And can I also just say, in Stevie's case, she was able to select 5. I don't know if you went on all 5 interviews, but not everybody's going to get every interview that is on their list. So if you select 5, they will send your resume to those 5 placements. And if they like your resume and what you have to say and how you represent yourself, then you will be granted the interview with the agency. So I think it's just very important to also say that as well.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about some of the perks. So you mentioned a little bit of the professional development, but let's talk about, like, what do you get paid? Like, are these paid? What are some of the other benefits of doing a fellowship as compared to maybe another internship or other kind of opportunities like that? Bob, do you want to go first since you haven't talked for a few minutes?
Sure, why not? Before I go on that, I just want to piggyback on one thing that both Stevie and Shakira had said on. Sometimes you apply for 5 or 6 and then they come back to you with a 7th, because I can, like, literally there's a wall with all of the applicants on there, and we literally go through and say, oh, Stevie, I don't think Stevie's going to be good here, but Stevie might be good right there. So it might even be something that you aren't even aware of. So just that, be receptive to it. In terms of compensation, I can speak to stuff at the state side. I'm sure, you can go into whatever you can find at the federal level, local level, or even in corporate sector. But by and large, usually internships are not paid, usually. However, shameless plug, the Chamber Fellowship, which will open up in the fall, is actually going to be paid now. So keep an eye out for that. Only requirement there, I believe, is you need to be a sophomore at the time. Fellowships are mostly paid or at least subsidized, but they come with strings attached, meaning you need to jump over a certain hurdle to apply to them. Where an internship, there's an expectation of, like, you're here to gain experience. A fellowship is, you have some experience and we want you to give that experience to us and we will pay you for it. So that's kind of the difference there. It's not 100% rule, but that's most of the time. And I'm sorry, was there any other part of your question that I may have missed?
Just some of the other, benefits and perks of fellowships that might be available.
So speaking to the Empire and Excelsior programs, other than compensation, the perks are professional development. So Stevie and Shakira are going through, it's bi-monthly professional development sessions where the movers and shakers in state government and local government and even federal government come by and will devote hours of their day to present to you on topics that are of interest to you, to them. Public speaking training, resume building, how to leverage your connections, networking. All of these kind of things are built into the Excelsior Fellowship. That is an added perk. You don't pay for it. I mean, you got to show up to the location, but that's about it. And that's something that is hard when you're in a job, because if you're in a career, it's hard to go to your boss and be like, hey, I want to take a day or two to go do this thing to help better me professionally. With a fellowship, it's not even a requirement. It's, hey, I'm going to go do this. And if you've got a problem with it, go call Kara, because I have to. So that's kind of the benefit to it there, is that fellowships can be built around you. and to benefit you professionally. Whereas if you're trying to take that on while you're in a standalone job, it's a bit more difficult. Not impossible, but a bit more difficult.
Excellent. Shakira or Stevie, anything you want to add in terms of like compensation, benefits, perks, all of those things?
I can go. And Stevie, of course, can talk about the Excelsior Fellowship. We'll divvy up that work again. So with the Center for Women in Government Public Policy Fellowship, there was compensation. It was $12,000. The other perk is that the 3 classes that I mentioned, you do not pay for. So you pretty much, yes, that you don't have to pay for those 3 classes. It's a part of the fellowship experience, and you do get paid on top of that. I didn't work for state government. I worked for a nonprofit, as I mentioned, the college for American College for Obstetricians and Gynecologists. And the skills that I really learned were invaluable. Some of the things that I thought I couldn't do, I actually did. I managed a group of OBGYNs, which are doctors that take care of pregnant women and people. I managed a group of them to get a project done, or at least started while I was there, because it was 6 months. It was pretty short, right? I was able to manage a group of them and get them started on a ongoing project around menopause and healthcare when it comes to the reproductive process for women and or individuals who have uteruses. And then public speaking and presentation giving were also really, they were nerve-wracking, and sometimes they still are, but again, it's a muscle you kind of have to work at. And so those things get easier speaking in public. And I will speak to the Excelsior Service Fellowship. You learn a lot about government, and you hear the word bureaucracy. You will literally see how bureaucracy works with the Excelsior and Empire State Fellowships. It's good to know about it in theory. It's good to learn about it. It's good to know how to talk about it. But I think one thing that's been really invaluable to me is learning how hierarchies work, learning how things are politicized in state government, or how much they are, even though you would not think so. And, you know, just really open to doing the work that benefits the people of the state of New York, regardless of that. So those are some of the really invaluable things that I've gotten and that I'm continuing to learn, because it's only been 6 months. So, yeah.
Excellent.
I would agree with all of that, but I would say personally, a perk / benefit I've had is the leadership in my office really takes fellowship seriously, because we have had folks from the Empire Fellowship who are now program directors within our agency. And so there is another Excelsior fellow at my agency, and we get to work closely together, but also our bosses are really invested in our growth and their mentorship of us. And so kind of every opportunity that comes up, they want us to be able to do it. And to travel with them to certain meetings, locations, events. And I don't think I would have been able to get that in another job right out of grad school. So I'm really thankful for that experience. And I think that's a big benefit of fellowships.
Excellent. I'm going to stop for a second and see if any of you have questions. So if you're on Zoom and you've got questions, type them into the chat. Emily will pull them up for us. Anyone in the room have a question, feel free to just raise your hand for either about fellowships in general or any of the specific things that these guys have done. I have more questions, but I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions. Yes. You want to come over here and then they can hear you?
I have a question about the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society Fellowship. With the 3 courses that come with that, what's the workload like for that? Because I know you said that it's a 35 to 40-hour work week. So I was just wondering what the course load is like.
Well, I know recently they changed some of the professors, and I'm sure with that is a slight change in curriculum. I would say that the work was very manageable. we didn't have final exams. It was a lot of presentations, a lot of research. And if that's something you're used to doing and love to doing, the work can be very manageable. And again, the professors within the fellowship, they know that you are trying to leverage a network. They know that you're trying to explore and get out to meet different people. And they know you're also a student. So there is definitely a level of flexibility there. And I was doing this during COVID. So they were definitely flexible in understanding if you had any familial or personal commitments. And you know, my cohort was very diverse. We had we had people that were parents, people that, you know, had all the commitments. We even had one fellow, she traveled from Westchester County to Albany for 6 months. And if she couldn't make it, they were definitely understanding of that. So in terms of workload, sorry, I just wanted to also show you that there is a lot of flexibility in the fellowship. And in consideration, you know, people are very compassionate if you have other commitments, if you, you know, if a deadline, you know, slipped by, or you need a little bit more time. Nobody, as far as I knew in the fellowship, was penalized for something being late. And you have a lot of accountability. You become a network of sister fellows, so you become a network, and there's a lot of willingness to help one another, you know, be productive or help out in any way. So I hope that answers your questions. I talk a lot and I give way more information, but I hope that was helpful.
That's great. Thank you. She said thank you. Other questions? I'm gonna put it in my data. So Bob, why don't you tell us a little bit about, and you might be able to share your own experience, but also just your knowledge of the program and other people from your cohort in terms of like what happens after a fellowship. And the Excelsior is a 2-year fellowship, I believe. So what happens afterwards? Does everybody get a job? Does everybody stay in the same office? Does it happen to 2 people in a cohort? Like, kind of give us a little bit about next steps and how this helped you and helps other fellows with next steps in their career.
Yep. So yes, it is a 2-year fellowship, the Excelsior Service Fellowship. In terms of, do people have jobs afterwards? Yes. Do people stay in the state? Not always. So I believe that, and Kara's going to kill me that I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I believe that something around the lines of 75 to 80% of the fellowship are retained by their agency, or are at least given an offer to be retained. The vast majority of that remainder choose to leave. It's not like, oh, well, 85% are given an opportunity and the rest are told to, you know, go kick rocks. So it's a very small percentage of individuals that are not retained. And speaking very candidly, because I think we can all be friends here, those individuals will probably be made aware with enough advance notice that they will not be receiving an offer, and they will be given reasons why. Yeah, there's the answer to that question. And I'm sorry, what else? So do you get jobs after? Yeah. And then what else was that?
Just in terms of how it helps your future career, you know, immediately, but then even down the road.
Well, immediately you get a job. Down the road, you can leverage those connections that you make. I know we're probably, you know, beating this one dry here, but make the connections when you can, where you can. You have no idea when you're going to run into someone at Trader Joe's or Price Chopper and be like, oh, funny, I'm running into you here. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, we're looking for someone with that experience. You exchange emails, boom, you got a job. I'm not saying that that's something that happens all the time, but it definitely does happen. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to sell yourself well. What you've done in your fellowship and before then are of interest to employers. Don't be like, I don't want to talk about that because it was kind of boring, or I think it might not be relevant. Let them decide. Something to you that you might be like, not important, could be the thing that is like, oh my God, this person. Case in point, I was an intern with Chuck Schumer while I was an undergrad, and then I worked for the Department of Health while I was getting my MPA. And one of the things that I did for both of them is I used the Legislative Retrieval System, LRS. I don't know if anyone knows about this. Stevie's smiling. It is
Several
an
people in this room
antiquated
do.
system, but it's fantastic for tracking bills. And I was this close to not putting it on my resume because I was like, who the hell cares about LRS? That is the reason why I got an interview with my current job, because no one in my office knew how to work it. And they were like, wait, prove that you know how to track bills and can do this. Can you pull this for us? And I did. And they were like, oh, sounds good. You never know what someone's going to be looking for. So put everything out there. And everything that you do on these fellowships can build out that skill set and build out those experiences for you.
Excellent.
Have I preached enough?
That's great. Anyone, and Stevie or Shakira, anything to add in terms of kind of, you're not quite as far along in your career, but like just things you've heard about the program, or what you're, kind of why you did this in hopes of what you will get in the future? It's okay if you don't. I have more questions, so we can move on.
I mean, can you just remind me of your question? I'm sorry. I'm
That's
still
okay.
on networking. Networking, I'm sorry, it's just my personal thing, and not to, bombard into your session after. But I definitely think again, networking is a muscle you have to build. And when you are seeking out these opportunities, know that it's a very easy way to build a network. You have no idea how many people are willing to speak to me when I say, hi, my name is Shakira Thames and I'm a Center for Women in Government Fellow, or not, I'm an Excelsior Service Fellow. Even if it has nothing to do with what my placement is for. I graduated with my MPA in health policy, but I work at the Department of Labor. I still have an interest in health policy, and even trying to figure out how to be innovative and marry the two in the Department of Labor space. I'm constantly reaching out to leadership, trying to make connections and even see if there's something viable there. And people are so interested to hear what I have to say, because I am a fellow. So when you are applying for a fellowship, and once you get into a fellowship position, just make sure you take advantage of it. Definitely, to what Bob said, Kara will tell you this. If you want to go to a conference, tell your placement that you're going to go and say, Kara told me to tell you that I'm going to do this, and it's for my professional development, because that's really what this is about. It's about you figuring out who you are and who you want to be as a professional, in addition to having employment and being able to learn live. And there's a different phrase I wanted to use, but just learning live and learning in real time about government and how it functions, and the different people, even with me being at Rockefeller, and I talked to so many professors, and I've attended webinars. I still attend UAlbany webinars, and I see people from other conversations or networks of people that I've been speaking to, right? So people say Smallbany. Once you get into state government, you will hear the term and phrase Smallbany. It's because sometimes you can be walking down the street and you may see a commissioner. You may see, the head of, I don't know, maternal and child health or something like that. Especially during session, once the city is flooded with lobbyists and all these people advocating on behalf of bills and things that are important to them, you have no idea who you will run into. So I would just definitely keep an open mind about that. And I will put the network word in there one more time and just really try your best to build that out.
Excellent. We've got a question in the chat that actually goes hand in hand with the next question I was going to ask. So I'm going to kind of ask them together. So Sophia asked if you have any book recommendations, particularly regarding networking, professionalism, any books that you'd recommend reading. And I was going to ask, what are some things students can do now? So a lot of the students that are attending are undergraduate students right now. Some are already in their master's program. But what are some things that they can be doing now if they're thinking, "Ooh, these fellowships sound great down the road"? What would you recommend that they be doing or reading now to make sure they're in the best place possible to take advantage of these opportunities as they move forward? And I'll let whoever wants to go first, go first. All right, Bob, you're on.
Well, Shakira, I don't want to, were you about to? Okay.
At this point, I need a cup of water, so just.
Yeah, I've been coughing and hacking over here. I know what you mean. So literally I saw that go through and I went to my bookshelf over here. So 3, I couldn't find the third one. One is shameless plug. Can you, oh, it's backwards, isn't it?
Nope, it's
Leading
good.
so
No, we
people-
can see it right.
Oh, leading so people can will follow. Absolutely fantastic book. It's a bit of a dry read. Skim through it, get the lessons out of it. It basically talks about a way for you to carry yourself in a manner that is able to be well received and, let's, Reader's Digest version, well liked, and people will go along with it. But also how to stop yourself from doing something stupid. How many people here are classics nerds like me? Anyone?
Well, there's
Oh,
a couple of hands in the room, so.
okay, great. So, Kikero. How to win an argument. I swear I use this all the time. Basically, this is the driest of reads. Like, I'm so sorry, but pull out little bits of knowledge from 2,000 years ago there. It's basically talking about all of the steps that it takes to come off as professional, profound, and relevant. How can you frame an argument? And it goes into how can you be a better public speaker? Yeah, like I love this book. I hate this book, but I love this book. Yeah, those are the 2 big ones. Couldn't find the third. By who? So Leading So People Will Follow is by Eric Anderson. Andersen. And How to Win an Argument is by, well, Kikero.
Yeah, someone put in the chat the first 90 days. So I think that's actually what she was asking about. And I don't know who wrote that one. I've heard it, but I don't know. So while everyone's contemplating that, Shakira or Stevie, any suggestions either about books or just other things that you would recommend students be doing now to prepare them to have that strong application to get into a program like this down the road?
I don't necessarily have any book recommendations. I love reading, but I'm more so reading fiction, but with a mix of nonfiction. I find that really important. But I also find that myself and the folks in my office are always talking about current events, current books. So I also just kind of find it this social thing for my office. So whenever you can read the news, subscribe to any daily headlines, again, any current books that are popular, any theories or topics that have to do with your work, I find that really important that you know what's going on, so you can know what can apply to the workplace and what won't apply, what's accurate, what's not. So I think reading is always important.
Sure, I can go now. So The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, not very much professional development, but it does teach you a lot about who you are. So I come from a position of major self-awareness, and that's what you have to be able to be, especially if you're working on things that are high stakes. You have to learn not to take things personally. You have to know when to be, I don't want to say emotional, but have passion for what you're doing, and kind of know when to step back. You don't have to fight every battle. And I know sometimes There's generational differences, but you have to know who you are and able to move through and get things accomplished with the different personalities you're gonna come up against. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is another amazing read. People also talk about The Alchemist. The author's not coming to my mind, and that's really not okay. But The Alchemist, I also hear, is a really good read that people recommend. And I just bought this book, and I'll share it because I literally just ordered it on Amazon. I haven't read it yet. However, again, right, this is about being inspired to work in public service. And if you have plans to do great things, so one of my dreams is to definitely go to law school. Why? I have to always figure out my why. That's another one. Start with Why by Simon Steinbeck. Start with why. What is your why? What is your purpose for, you know, going to school and getting the degree that you want to get? What is the purpose of then pursuing a master's degree and what you're getting it in? And really being grounded and knowing your why. Your why can change, but being able to be grounded in something is very helpful. Otherwise, when you start really moving and your career takes off and you don't know which way you want to go, you get confused. Right now, I'm a little confused because I did health policy, but now I work at the Department of Labor. And I'm really into reproductive justice. And you know, with all the political things happening, I had to reground myself. And I know Ruth Bader, former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is a really big person that can reground me in that. So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, we're coming up on the end of our hour, even if with our delayed start time. So any more questions from any of the students? If not, maybe would each of you, any just last words of wisdom, something about fellowships that you didn't get to say yet, or words of advice for the students? Oh, wait, we got a quick question here. Go ahead. Yeah, come up here. Don't trip over my cord.
Hi, my name is Joshua. So my question is, I'm struggling, looking for an avenue of advocacy or some type of, I guess, a medium where I can express advocacy to develop change in my community. And I'm struggling with the best way to do that. I know there's a lot of things, fellowships in the past and internships and multiple different avenues in government and nonprofits. I'm looking to see if through your opinion, since this is primarily through fellowships and nonprofits and also someone working in government, I'm thinking, so I don't know what's the best way to represent a community or to advocate for my own community, but through fellowships, in your opinion, what is the best way to do that? Is that through working in government, being in the nonprofit sector, running for office, or what do you guys think? Because that's what I'm struggling with as I'm continuing my education, but how do you present that?
So I'm gonna, looking at Stevie and Bob's face, we really could not hear too much of what you were saying. Is there any way?
Yeah, so he was basically asking, he said he's struggling a little with kind of from his own experience in internships and things like that in classes, like what's the best way to make change or advocate for your community or a community or your community? Is it through nonprofits? Is it through government work? Is it through running for office? That was kind of the gist of the question. Did I get it close?
Yeah.
Okay. I know we left you with, this is a big philosophical question for the end, so go for it. See which, and no one expects the magic answer, but do you have any thoughts?
I would say yes. All of the above and more. And sometimes you don't know what impact you're going to have on a person or a community in whatever you're doing. So treat every action as if it is profound, because it might not be profound for 90% of the people, but 10% of the people might be like, damn. So yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely just think it's based on how you want to approach it, right? If you want to I mean, they say the boots on the ground. So like doing grassroots work, you know, your work is going to be community-based. You're going to be working with community-based organizations and really getting the voices of the people and their stories. And a lot of times when you're looking at data, for example, government really runs on a lot of data. And I in my experience, I found that nonprofits are the people that say the data is important, but let's pull the people and single out the people that, you know, are represented in these numbers. And that's not a one size fits all approach either. Government has a lot of really awesome programs that they run, and they partner a lot with community-based organizations. So if you have an opportunity to be in a space where, you know, you may be working for state government and they do work with community-based organizations, definitely ask the questions and see how they work, who they work with, and how they work with community-based organizations. And vice versa, see how nonprofits interact with government. Both are very, very important, and both will tell you very different things. The cultures are also very different. They run on very different timelines. And, you know, in terms of advocacy, nonprofits do a lot of lobbying. So that means going to legislators and telling them how you feel, what you're expecting from a bill or from a piece of legislation, and how you can support a community. And legislatures, on the other hand, have to respond. Right. So it really just depends on how you want to interact with all the processes that exist.
Excellent. There's another question in the chat, and I don't know if you guys, I may just be able to answer that one quickly. Someone asked, do fellowships only exist for graduate students, or are there fellowships for undergraduates too? I will say that obviously the programs we were talking about were for graduate students or for students finishing a master's program. I will say that the majority of fellowships really fall into that category, either for students while they're in a master's program or after you finish a master's program. But there are a good number of fellowships that are some available, like summer programs, kind of like the CLS program that Jacqueline talked about, that you can do in the summer during your undergraduate time. There are also a fair number of fellowships that actually part of the fellowship is funding your master's program. So those are things that you can apply to as you're nearing, like as a senior in your undergraduate, for a fellowship that you would be doing some work and schooling together. So there's a variety of programs. But I will recommend, and Emily, maybe you can pull up the website for ProFellow and put that in the chat. ProFellow is an excellent website. It's kind of a clearinghouse for all kinds of fellowships in the country, probably around the world. And if you're interested in these types of opportunities, that's a great website to go on, and you can search by different types of fellowships. If you're interested in this type of career or this type of work, or you're looking for things that are available to undergrads or graduates or postgraduate, you can do searching there. And you can also sign up to be like on their email list, and then you'll get alerts and emails about fellowships and opportunities. And they do webinars throughout the year about fellowships and things like that too. So that's probably the best single resource about all kinds of fellowships in general. So, and Emily did put it in the chat. Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I'm sorry. This again, the Center for Women in Government, they do offer a 1-week intensive leadership program for undergraduates that get exposure to a really amazing people. So if you are interested in that, I would I can put the link in the chat too, but definitely keep your eye out for that as well. It's 1 week, it's very intense. I believe it's called the New Leadership New York Summer Institute. And again, in being strategic about how to build your network, that's one way you can do it. So definitely take advantage of small opportunities, even if they're a week, they're 2 days, take advantage of them because you don't know who they're going to connect you to. moving forward.
Yeah, that is a great program, and we usually promote that in the, the weekly career newsletter, but definitely any of those types of opportunities that we hear about, we try to share. But we are now well past time. So any last words of wisdom that you guys have? I don't want to keep you all night. We certainly appreciate your time, but any last words of wisdom before we go? Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to share with our students. The students always love to hear from people who are out in the field doing all of these great things that they aspire to do in the next few years. So we appreciate that. And we look forward to seeing you at an alumni event maybe someday. So take care.